Shalom. Call Haloyamla, Yahweh, Bahashum, Yahweh Shai, Bahashum Rakha Kudash, Brakata Yahweh, Brakata Yahweh Shai, Brakata Rakha Kudash, Bahashum, Yahweh Shai, Bahashum Rakha Kudash. Shalom and double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elders in the Akim and the Akwath. Shalom. Once going to a video entitled Understand Romans 11:11, and you will understand the New Testament, which pretty much you understand the truth. Because Christianity says that all nations will be saved. All nations are now grafted in after the Israelites in the homeland, the Jews had rejected the Messiah, is now open to all nations to now come in, which is a lie and that's false. Because what nations today, even not just off the understanding of what nations today are calling upon Yahweh and Yahweh Shah and speaking the truth, coming out of the Bible, breaking down precepts, they're not doing it and they're not keeping the commandments, they're not rehearsing the righteous acts, and not having the faith in the Messiah. So all that's a lot just off that alone. And then when you open the scriptures and break it down, it further cements that, right? So we'll read Romans 11:1. It reads, it said, I say then, hath Yahweh cast away his people? Yahweh forbid. So hath the Most High cast away his people, the Israelites? The Most High forbid. That means no. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So it was important. This is Paul. This is a letter to the Romans, the Israelites that were living as Gentile heathen, right? Israelites that were lost living as Romans, but they were Israelites, like we today are Americans, thinking we're Americans rather. And then until you wake up to the fact that you're actually an Israelite. That's what the book of Romans is about, a letter to the Romans. And every letter Paul wrote was to those Israelites living as those people. That's one of the things he said, be all things to all people. And then he titled it after what they thought they were, titled the books, Corinthians and Philippians, Galatians, because wherever they were at, they were living as the Gentile heathen. But they're actually Gentile Israelites. So we're going to break these things down and go into it a bit here and prove that, these is just Paul's letters are basically just written to the lost sheep of Israel, the lost sheep Israelites that were living as heathens. And this was the Most High going out and fetching the lost sheep that were scattered of the Israelites. So Romans 11:11, it says, I say then, have they stumbled that they shall fall? And that word stumbled means sin. Should they stumble? Have they stumbled? So to cause one to stumble or fall, to stumble, to err, that means error, make a mistake, to sin. So should they sin? Have they sinned that they should fall? Meaning permanently, not should they sin and fall to their destruction and be done with, Yahweh forbid, meaning no. But rather through their fall, so rather through their stumbling and their temporary sinning, going off for that season, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. So now it's time to go and graft back in, and go and fish for the lost sheep of the Israelites. So for through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy, because you have to understand the history of the land in that time, because the Jews that were living in the homeland of Israel in Jerusalem, they knew that they were Israelites, right? And so they didn't. So any Israelite that left or that was scattered and became heathen, living like the heathen, any Jews Israelites that were living as heathen out there, the Jews in the homeland referred to them as heathen, and they didn't deal with them, and they treated them differently, and were it wasn't really that nice to them. It wasn't that kind to them, because they were like you're a heathen. So it was real serious. And so the Most High provoked them that was in the homeland and knew that they were Jews, He was doing that because the Most High, like, okay, you reject the Son, you reject my Son, Yahushua, right? The Messiah, they rejected. That was in the homeland and knew they were Jews. And then so he provoked them to jealousy by going after the lost sheep, the Israelites, the lost Israelites, right? So that's how they provoked them to jealousy. Not no heathen, but going to go bring like the phrase in the world, bringing a band back together, But they were kind of like, very, they had a lot of they had the heathen adopted a lot of their customs, but they had to get cleaned up again and come back to their heritage that they had strayed away from. So that's all this is talking about. Let's see. We'll go to real quick Acts chapter 6 and verse 1. And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, now these disciples are Israelites. And we'll keep reading. There arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews. See, because only Israelites can be disciples. Whether you were domestic, knowing who you were still as Israelites, or the foreign Israelites that lost their identity and had to be awakened back to the truth, like we are right now in these last days over here in America, and throughout the four corners right now, we're awakening. So, of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration, so the daily service. That's what ministration means. Minister or ministration is the service. So, so who are these Grecians right here? So you would think, oh, that's the Greeks. That's so-called Edomites. I mean, not so-called white people, which are the Edomites. So where's Grecians? So when you look up Grecians, see that word right there? The Greek word here is what? Hellenistus. That means the Hellenized people. People that were Hellenized. So when you get down to the definition, a breakdown of the word Hellenist, a Hellenist, this Grecian is a particular Hellenist. I mean, it's a particular group of people. A Hellenist, one who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue. So these are Greek-speaking Jews. So we'll keep reading. Used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek, because Greek was the primary language at that time. Why? Because of the Greeks and the Greco-Roman Empire that was the world superpower at that time, and Greek was the languages that they spread across all of the lands that they conquered over there throughout Africa, Europe, and Asia, right? So these Grecians were actually Israelite Jews that were Hellenized, meaning like we were Americanized over here in Babylon the Great. They were so Hellenized means Greekized, basically to try to put it together a little. It's not a word, but they were influenced by the Greek culture and became Greeks, just like we became Americans growing up in Babylon the Great over here in America. But we're not American. We're English-speaking American, Gentile Americans. Not, if I'm putting it together properly, but yeah, so they were Hellenized Jews at that time, living as Greeks. So that was the dynamic that was going on. And that's where you get the whole, there's neither Jew nor Greek in Galatians 3:28, which Christianity don't even understand the history, don't even break it down, go into the Greek and do all of this research and to understand the history. Because you have to study to show thyself approved. And they just run their mouth. They don't bring out any kind of evidence to prove it. But this is the proof that these Grecians, or the Greek word for Grecian that was used in this context, because it's all about the context, is that they were Hellenized. They were Hellenists, right? So we read this little part down here at the bottom too. It says what? A Hellenist or a Greek-speaking Jew, Grecian. So that's what a Hellenist is, a Greek-speaking Jew. So that's what was going on right here, because the truth started getting out, because the apostles were sent away. That's what apostle means, sent away. They were sent away with the truth from Yahushua to continue the mission, to spread the truth to the lost sheep of Israel. And so he said there arose a murmuring of the Grecians. So we know that these Grecians are Greek-speaking Jews that woke up to the truth through the spreading of the gospel, and they woke up out of that heathen Greek mindset and became disciples. Meaning what? Came back to their heritage and began learning again, learning their culture and heritage of the covenant of the commandments, and start learning the truth again. Right. So there arose a murmuring of the Greek-speaking Jews against the Hebrews. So why I say Hebrews, because these are the Jews that were already in the land, that are, that never did fall away from their heritage. They kept it, and they were in the land already. So there was a murmuring of the foreign Israelites, the foreign Jews, against the domestic Jews that was already that was in the land, because their widows were neglected in the daily service. So because there was a little bit of beefing going on, because the homeland, the Jews that never did fall away from the heritage, it was a bit of a beefing, and kind of like that's that jealousy right there, right? That's part of that jealousy. They was already jealous then, because the foreign Israelites started waking up to their identity and started coming back and started learning, but the homeland Jews was treating them bad. Was not treating them good. He was treating them kind of mean, and was being a little rude. Was neglecting their wives, the foreign Israelite wives, not treating them the same. So they were murmuring against that. They wasn't appreciating it. So we'll get the translation comparison here. So it says, but as the believers rapidly multiplied, there were rumblings of discontent. The Greek-speaking believers complained about the Hebrew-speaking believers, because those are the original Jews still sticking to their customs all that time, saying that their widows were being discriminated against in the daily distribution of food. So we're going to get an even better one in the Good News translation right here. In Acts 6 and what was that, 1? Yeah. Sometime later, as the number of disciples kept growing, there was a quarrel between the Greek-speaking Jews and the native Jews. That's a better way to put it. The native Jews, right? The Greek-speaking Jews, those are the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles that Paul was reaching out to. The Greek-speaking Jews that were scattered outside, and he was going after the foreign Jews and to bring them back to the native land, and the native Jews was not treating them properly. So the Greek-speaking Jews claimed that their widows were being neglected in the daily distribution of funds. So this is what was going on. When you break it down, see, even these other translations can sometimes bring even more profound understanding when and breaking it, making it plainer. You see, you can't always get these other, you can't always break it down like the carnal understanding is easy to translate, but the spiritual understanding, the Holy Spirit got to reveal, the true understanding. But the facts that these are Greek-speaking Jews, that's not a hard thing to comprehend. So the Greek-speaking Jews that came back and woke up to the truth, their widows were being was being neglected by the native Jews, because they was kind of like upset, and maybe see that's that provoking of jealousy from the Most High, because the native Jews was the ones that neglected rejected the Messiah, Yahushua. It wasn't the foreign Jews that rejected the Messiah, because they didn't even know what was going. They weren't even awoke at that time. But it was the native Jews that had rejected the Messiah, and that's how now they being jealous and neglecting the foreign Jews. So that's what was going on. This isn't no heathen Gentiles. I mean, these are the heathen. That's that. There's neither Jew nor Greek. There's no Greek-speaking Jew. There's no difference between the native Jew and the Greek-speaking Jew. That's what it should say. So that's what that's all about. But they won't dare break this down and bring it out for you. So we thank the Most High for bringing us this understanding. That's really all we need to really go into, really. But we still have some more to go. Matthew 10:5 and 6, because this is who this is. This brings, clarity on what the Messiah was truly doing, what he came to do. Matthew 10:5-6. These 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. This is the heathen Gentiles. But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So those are the Greek Jews, the Greek Gentiles. That's the Jew Gentiles. So don't just go in there preaching to all of the heathen as well. Go and specifically find the lost sheep, the lost Jew Gentiles, the foreign Jews, the Greek-speaking Jews. So that's what that's all about. So Yahushua told them, don't go nowhere else but into them. Matthew 15:24. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So those Greek-speaking Jews, that's that there is neither Jew nor Greek. And then some of my favorite precepts here. And then it's Matthew 18:11. For the Son of Man is come to save that which was lost. Those are those Israelite foreigners, the Greek-speaking Jews we just broke down. And in in my previous video, I brought it out. We'll do it real quick again. And this is in red, so this is the Messiah speaking, right? It's the Messiah letting you know what he came to do. The Most High is not the author of confusion, but wicked men that steal the scriptures and add unto it, put confusion upon the scriptures. So Matthew 18:11, and it's in this translation in the NIV, which is like the most popular version for Christianity to use, the NIV, and then even some other ones. If you have the NIV Bible, and you open it to Matthew 18:11, that verse is taken out completely. So what the Most High say, he that taketh away from the Bible, he should add unto them the plagues written thereof. So these people that wrote these that's taking away these scriptures and trying to mess it up through these other translations, it has hell to pay. That's why you stick to the KJV and get rooted, and then you can, once you get a good understanding, you can kind of go into the other versions sometimes to get more plain wording to bring it home even more. But the main thing is the Spirit is what's going to, the Holy Spirit from the Most High through Yahushua sending it is what really revealed it all to you. These are just minor aid. This is supplements. The main diet is from the Holy Spirit. Okay, so so that's what that is, man. Let's go back to just kind of reading my notes here as I'm thinking out loud. Let me see. So that's what Romans 11:11 is talking about. We'll read it again. It says, I say then, have they sinned that they should fall? And that's the native Jews that rejected the Messiah. Yahweh forbid. He's still going to deal with them, but he's going to go to the foreign Jews, the Greek-speaking Jews outside the nation, to bring them back in. But rather through their fall, through the native Jews' fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. Those are the Greek-speaking Jews, for to provoke them to jealousy. And that's the native Jews got provoked to jealousy, and they were treating the Greek-speaking Jews, negatively by kind of neglecting the Greek-speaking Jews, the foreign Jews, their widows. They were neglecting them because of their jealousy for them coming back. So we'll go to Romans 2:25. Reads, for circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. So if you, this is a twofold right here. It shoots down Christianity once more. They're even more so because they say the law is done away with. But the only way you can be circumcised, meaning being acceptable to the Most High, is by keeping the law. So the law is not done away with. That's a lie it's a lie of Satan. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. So you uncircumcised and you're unclean to the Most High because you didn't clean yourself by with the law, making yourself circumcised. And the Greek-speaking Jews, they were uncircumcised. So right, they were uncircumcised, living as heathen. And then when the Most High brought them back, they became circumcised again because they woke up to the truth, and they became circumcised again in their heart, which is their mind. Verse 26, therefore, if this uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? So that meaning that shouldn't he now, those that are uncircumcised, when they keep the law, the righteousness which is of the law, now it's going to make them, they're going to be counted as circumcised. Verse 27, and shall not the uncircumcision, which is by nature, so that's the flesh, you living as a brute beast through the flesh and the carnal mind, when you're not keeping the commandments, that's the nature. The flesh is of sinful nature, is of an uncircumcised nature. If it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision do is transgress the law. So, Paul was real deep on his writings. So if you keep the law, then you're going to become circumcised. But if you go away from the law, then you uncircumcised, then you unclean again. So that's basically what was going on. And who was the only nation that was given the law? The Israelites. So this is not for the heathen at all. A heathen can't return to a law that they were never given. It makes a remedial sense. Deuteronomy 10:16. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. Stiff-necked meaning stubborn and not keeping the commandments. Listen to the Most High, and be humble, and soften your neck. But so the foreskin of your heart, that skin is that carnal mind. Become a new man, born again, and become that new spiritual man. So heart is meaning your inner man, your mind, will, heart, soul, understanding. Inner part, midst. So that's your mind. Not so when when the scriptures speak on your heart, that's talking about your mind, not your heart in your chest. People don't know what heart truly, what was reference to talking about your mind. So you gotta keep the commandments, and then you'll circumcise your mind, and you'll become clean with your thoughts and your actions and what you speak. Keeping the commandments and having your conversation in heaven, speaking on the commandments and on the scriptures and the good news. So only Israelites can be circumcised. Did I read? Let me see. I want to see what the New Testament, the Good News translation got for Romans. I forgot what it said. If it says the same similar things. So Romans 11 and 1. 11:11. I asked then, when the Jews stumbled, did they fall into their ruin? See, meaning destruction permanently. By no means. That means no. Because they sinned, salvation has come to the Gentiles to make the Jews jealous of them. Okay, and then break it all the way down. The Gentiles is referencing, as we read, is the Greek-speaking Jews in Acts 6:1 in the Good News translation right here. The same thing, but you just got to break it down. So Romans 11 and so going to Romans 11:24. For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? So, like we just read about how when you don't keep the commandments, you become uncircumcised, and that's how you become a wild tree. That's how you become wild branches. But you were originally the natural branches of the vine, which is Yahushua. But then when you start sinning, you go off, you become a wild branch and cut off. And that's what happened to the Israelite foreigners. They got cut off, and that's why they became Israelite foreigners. And so now, through the native Jews' fall, the wild branches, which are the Israelite foreigners, Israelites, the Greek-speaking Jews, can now come back and get grafted back into their own idolatry, which was theirs to begin with, which they were a part of to begin with, not the heathen. The heathen are wild branches by nature because they don't have the commandments and they're heathen, right? You can't graft two different trees together. It won't work. You can only graft in the tree of the same kind, which is the Israelites, which were now foreign Greek-speaking Jews. So that's what this referencing. Let's see. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery. See, it's a mystery, and it's a dark saying, and you have to have the Spirit to reveal it through, and being taught from other learned men, and have the Spirit supping with you to understand the mysteries, because it wasn't given to everybody. Because that's another strike against Christianity, because if the Most High came for everybody, He will make it plain for everybody. He wanted plain for those that He chose, for the elect few, for a remnant, to be able to understand it. That ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness is in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. So these Gentiles is different from these other Gentiles. When you go to, so you may wonder what the fullness of these Gentiles are. Well, let's go back to it again real quick. Romans 11 and 20. It says, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. So the fullness of the Gentiles is the period of time that they will be Gentiles, Greek-speaking Jews, and living as heathen until the time is fulfilled for them now to start coming back to their natural heritage, coming back to get grafted into their own tree, which is the olive tree, which is ultimately is Yahushua, the Messiah. And then there's another Gentiles mentioned, got similar wording, but it's two different groups of Gentiles. So when you go to Luke 21:24, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. So these are the Israelites that will get destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans, and it's known as the Great Diaspora, when the native Jews that was in the land would get besieged by the Romans and fall. It's a thing called the Roman Jewish Wars from 66 AD to 73 AD. And then in the midst of those 7 years, around 70 AD is when the Romans was able to end Jerusalem from being a nation. And, in our homeland, we had to flee and leave out of that land. And then a lot of them got captive, and those are who the gladiators were in the Roman Colosseums, captured Jews after that 70 AD siege. So when they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and also a good amount escaped and fled into Africa, and then they got later rounded up, what's known as the transatlantic slave trade off the west coast of Africa, because they loved Jerusalem. That's why they was on the west coast during the time of the 1600s, when they were getting rounded up by Esau Edom, the European known as at that time, conspired with the Africans, because we had got destroyed out of our land, migrated and settled for about 1,500 years over there in Africa, until we got rounded up to be brought to our last captivity over here in Babylon the Great. So when they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, because we went to Africa, and we also went throughout, and there's a good amount of history over the last 1,500 years as well. We went to an Arab trade. When we went to an Arab slave trade as well before the transatlantic slave trade. It was called the sub-Saharan slave trade, when the Arabs had rounded us up for a period of time as well. So we went into slavery on all nations. So we was scattered throughout the earth after 70 AD. those native Jews. And so, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So these Gentiles are heathen Gentiles. So we were going to get taken away, and then the heathen, chiefly with Esau Edom, would take our land and become and inhabit it. See, because they're in it right now, going by little hats, wearing little hats now. So it should be trodden down of the Gentiles. The word trodden down means what? To tread, to trample, crush with the feet, to advance by setting foot upon, to tread, to encounter successfully the greatest perils from the machinations, and that means, plots and schemes and persecutions with which Satan would fain thwart. Fain means gladly thwart the preaching of the gospel. And that's what they're doing over there. To tread underfoot, trample on, to treat with insult and contempt, to desecrate the holy city by devastation and outrage. Because right now it's devastated over there. Because there's this thing called the Pink City. And we know that goes into with the rainbow people, That's what they're doing over there. And that's how it's being trodden down. That's part of how it's being trodden down. Until the Gentiles be fulfilled. So these heathen Gentiles, they're going to be, the Most High is allowing them to do that until their expiration date. And that's coming to an end. They just doing that for a season and not permanently. This is our prophecy. Them being over there, claiming our heritage and doing abominable things there is a prophecy that they'll do that for a season until their time is up and they get burnt with fire because of it. So when you go to that's just for a season. So these Gentiles here are different. So these Gentiles, it says what? Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And then in Romans 11 it speaks about till the Gentiles come in, until the fullness of the Gentiles come. So these Gentiles, these heathen Gentiles, they have a period of destroying our heritage. These heathen Gentiles are going to destroy our heritage for a season. And then the Greek-speaking Jew Gentiles are going to be, living as heathen for a season until they come back in into their heritage, and get grafted back in into their original olive tree, which is ultimately Yahushua. So when we go to Job chapter 20, verses 4 through 7, knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment? So we know the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So that's what that fullness of the Gentile. I mean, that's what that. Let me just get it real quick. I can't remember the quote. I can't quote it properly right now. In Luke 21:24. So that's that. Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. That's that time of the Gentiles right now. It's happening right now. And that's what the triumphing of the wicked. And that's them desecrating and destroying and having out, and how they are in possession of our identity. They've stolen our identity. That's the triumphing of the wicked. So Job, let me see. Job 20:4. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment? And they're the hypocrites of the earth. Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach into the clouds, yet shall he perish forever, like his own dung. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? So they're going to perish forever. That's the fullness of the Gentiles. So they're triumphing for a season until the Most High say, okay, that's enough. Excuse me. And that's the time we're in right now. The Most High is saying it's enough because truth is flooding the earth right now with the Kyrie and Kanye situations, and all of the Sambos and sellouts are speaking out against them right now. It's because, truth has never been at the forefront. It's never been mainstream like this. It's always been hidden, and they never gave it attention. But now it's time. It's the fullness of the Gentiles. Their time is about up. It's real close to being up now. So now it's time for the rest of the elect to awaken and get activated. And then the end is about to come. Because now this is fully the truth shall be preached until the whole earth, and then the end shall come. And so this is part of that process right now with the news and media and the mainstream. It's at the forefront now. Nobody can hide from it now. It's not hidden anymore. It's out there in the full public now. That's because the end is very close. Verse 15. He hath swallowed down riches, and he shall vomit them up again. Because that's the serpent, the snake. When you see a snake, they swallow everything down whole, like an animal. And sometimes, like they're out there in the wild, when they swallow a large animal like a deer, and you can see the animal in their body, they can't move anymore for a while because they got to go ahead and digest that animal. And if another animal come up on them, they're vulnerable, and so they'll hurry up, and now they got to hurry up and throw it up so that they can. So they got to throw that big animal back up so they can hurry up and try to, escape. If not, it'd be a sitting duck. So that's basically what Esau is. He's like that big anaconda that swallowed down all the riches of the earth, and but he's gonna have to vomit all that back up because it's time to get that back up what he stole and repay that and double. Let's see, 18 through 19. Yeah, that which he labored for, shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, meaning the repayment, and he shall not rejoice therein. He's going to be angry doing it because he's enjoying the fruits of all of his wicked labor, and he knows how beautiful the earth looks because he does all the flying and everything. The wicked elites, they truly know how beautiful the earth is, and they're going to be pain in their heart that they got to give this all back up. But these are riches ill-gotten. He didn't get it righteously. He got it all wickedly. So he's going to have to go ahead, and restore it. Verse 19, it says, because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, and that's us, chiefly the Israelites. We're the poor. Because he hath, and he's oppressed only us. He love oppressing us, right? Because he hath violently taken away an house which he builded not. And that starts over there with the temple over there in Jerusalem and our homeland, and then also over here, the land of the lost 10 tribes, which are the so-called Latinos and Native American Indians. And they stole this land too. And then also, wherever you see Edomites, so-called white people at, Australia, South Africa, all these lands are not his. He got to give all that back up. But chiefly with the Israelites and the heritage that we have, and chiefly our identity that he stole. And going to Ezekiel 36:5. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the Most High Power, the Hashem Yahushai, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen. See, there's the heathen, and then there's the residue, the lowest of the heathen. And this is who it is. And against all Idumea. Idumea is Greek for Edom. Edom is the so-called white race, the Edomites. So the residue of the heathen, the lowest of the heathen. So they're the scum, they're the lowest race on earth. Idumea, Edom. Edom equals red, because that when they get upset or mad, or they bend over, pick something up, and they come back up, they red. They blood show through their skin because they don't have melanin. And that's that mark of Cain, that's that curse. That's the cursed people of the Most High. It's just speaking just facts. It says, and against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land, which is that, what is that? Jerusalem, into their possession with the joy of all their heart. So that's the fullness of the Gentiles being fulfilled now, but that's about to come to, and the expiration date is coming up soon. And with the joy of all their heart, the joy of the hypocrite is but for a moment. With the spiteful minds, and that's them gladly scheming to thwart the teaching of the Most High power commandments through the witchcraft and all the wickedness they put forth, saying the Lord done away with and all of that. With the spiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. So that's what that's going into. So now we have a great understanding now of what Romans 11 was talking about, and these Gentiles, and understanding that when you see Gentiles, it's contextual. When you see Hellenized for the Greek word, know that that's the Greek-speaking Jews, and that's that there's neither Jew nor Greek, because Greek does not represent all nations. Greek just represents Esau, Edom. The Greek that they're talking about are Greek-speaking Jews. Because there's no difference between the foreign Jews, the Greek-speaking Jews, and the native Jews. There's no difference. And that was to stop the native Jews from being jealous as well, And for the foreigners to know that, although you foreign, don't worry about it. You're still the same. There's no difference between you and your native brothers that already know, that's been knowing. You just got to come on back in and get grafted back into the vine. Oh yeah, speaking of that, here go those precepts for the vine and those branches. Jeremiah 2:21. I don't know how I had skipped over that by accident. Jeremiah 2:21. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine. That's the Israelites. And our root is Yahushua. Holy a right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? So degenerate meaning, you become uncircumcised by breaking the commandments and going and living off as a heathen. A strange vine. So now that's that foreign Greek-speaking Jews. Those strange vines, that strange plant now. The original vine, the original branches got cut off and became degenerate and living as a heathen and became Greek-speaking Jews. And that's all that's about. In John 15, in verse 1, I am the true vine. This is in red. This is the Messiah speaking. So he's the true vine, and that's the true vine, and that's the vine spoken of. We were rooted in Yahushua even way back, because the word. Yahushua is the word. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me, and that's the elect. Every branch in, ultimately all Israel, but right now in these last days it's the elect. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, meaning the elect. See, the 2/3 will not bear fruit right now, so that's why they must be cut off and perish. And every branch that beareth fruit, and that's the elect, they're going to bear fruit. That's the good fruit. He purgeth it, meaning he cleansed it. So the elect that brings in fruit, brings in the other elect, right? That's that fishing for the elect. Purge it, and we'll see what that means. To cleanse of filth and purity. So how do we do that? How does that happen? You become circumcised by what? As we read, keeping the law is what circumcises you and cleans you and washes you and make you clean. He purgeth it when you bring in that that fruit that's being brought in is what? Those Gentile Greek-speaking Jews. And then they get cleansed and they get purged and cleansed and grafted back into their original vine, their natural vine, that it may bring more fruit, that it may bring forth more fruit. So keep bringing in and cleansing the degenerate branches. Purge them, cleanse them, bring them back into the fold, graft them back in where they fell off. who were originally are Jews, the Israelites, and ultimately all the 12 tribes. And then they'll get cleaned up and rooted in the milk and grow, and then they can bring in fruit as well and bring in more lost Israelites, the lost sheep, and that's all that's about. Let me see. Now, verse 3, now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Verse 4, abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, a branch can bring fruit. The source is from the root, which is the vine, which is Yahushua. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, which is Yahushua. No more can ye, except ye abide in me. So you abide in the branch, in the root, which is the true vine, the olive tree, which is Yahushua. Verse 5, I am the vine, ye are the branches. We are the body of Yahushua. Ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, ye can do nothing. So the Yahushua, he's the door, he's the way. Without him, we can't do anything. So with that being said, Romans 11:11, if you understand that, then you can understand the New Testament, and you can understand the truth. And it kills all these evil, wicked, false doctrines that just speak in general sense without any kind of precepts, without bringing out any verses to validate. But this here validates, that the truth is only for the Israelites, and it was to awaken the lost Israelites. So, with that being said, I hope this video was edifying. The water to the Ruach HaKodesh for another video. Till next video, I say, Shalom.